The attorneys in legal services are an unbelievably passionate and dedicated group. We have many, many attorneys who have been with the organization, not 10 years, not 20 years, not even 30 years, but 40 years. So I think what I learned was what that really means in terms of the depth of knowledge and the depth of insight that those folks have. And we are approaching a generational turnover in the workplace, just like every other organization. When one of those people leaves, we lose a library, and we can't afford that doing the work that we do. So this is a way to preserve that.
Yeah. Today on LawNext, how a legal services organization developed an innovative knowledge management platform to enhance access to justice. Recently, at the Knowledge Management and Innovation for Legal Conference held in New York City, Legal Services NYC was named as the winner of the inaugural Lex Prize Award, which is designed to recognize groundbreaking ideas in knowledge management and innovation for the legal industry. It won the prize for its development of the Legal Services NYC KM portal, a custom-built knowledge management portal designed to enable its legal professionals to more easily access important resources and more effectively collaborate with each other. I was at the conference and I had the opportunity there to sit down with two of the people who were instrumental in the portal's design and development. Alexander Horwitz, Chief Operating Officer at Legal Services NYC, and Kate Boyd, Chief Operating Officer at Sente Advisors, a company that helps law firms and legal organizations develop innovative projects and that work with Legal Services NYC to develop the KM portal. In today's episode, Horwitz and Boyd share the story of the problem they set out to solve and how they went about doing it. I'm Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to that, please take a moment to learn about the sponsors whose generosity helps keep this podcast going. Optimize your immigration practice with LollyLaw, the top-rated immigration case management software. Effortlessly manage cases with immigration-specific workflows, simplified billing, online payments, and reporting. Plus, LollyLaw's native form-filling feature contains over 125 USCIS, DOJ, and EOIR forms, all updated within an hour of official agency release. Explore how LollyLaw can take your firm to the next level at lollylaw.com. That's LOLLYLAW.com. Now on to today's interview. All right, this is another in the series of interviews I've been doing here at the KM&I conference in New York City, the KM&I for Legal, the Knowledge Management and Innovation for Legal Conference. And one of the highlights of the conference this year was the inaugural Lex Prize. The first time they awarded a Lex Prize for innovation in the area of knowledge management. And I am now sitting here with two of the people responsible for the winning entry this year. So why don't I have each of you introduce yourself rather than me attempt to do that? And why don't you kick us off, Alexander? You want to go first?
Yeah, happy to. I'm Alexander Horwitz. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Legal Services NYC. And?
I'm Kate Boyd from Sente Advisors. We had the pleasure to partner with Disney on the KM portal, which was the Lex Prize entry and then winner.
That's right.
Great. Well, first of all, congratulations on winning. Just by way of background, just tell us a little bit about Legal Services of New York before we start talking about the specifics of what you did here.
Happy to. I mean, one of the reasons why this was such a big honor for us to win this prize is because Legal Services NYC, or LISNY as we call it, is unusual in this space in the legal field. We're a nonprofit law firm. We're the largest provider of civil legal services to people in need in the country. We have over a dozen offices throughout New York City, and we serve about 100,000 New Yorkers a year. So to be, I think, in the field with these really big players in knowledge management, really sophisticated law firms, was a really amazing experience. And I have to say, a lot of that comes down to the partnership with Sente and Kate's leadership on the project and helping us realize how we could meet our needs through a combination of tech, process, and people.
Yeah. I have to say, I just want to underscore that point, because this is a conference at which the people who are here, the organizations that are represented here, are largely large law firms and people who work at large law firms. And so, in a sense, you kind of stood out like a sore thumb.
We sure did.
In terms of being
I'm
here.
I'm kind of used to that. That's not so unusual for me personally.
And I don't mean that as a negative thing, but
No.
it's all the more notable, I think, that you did win this award.
Yeah, we feel the same way.
Yeah.
And again, unusual and a real honor. We have 500 full-time attorneys. We have more than 200 support staff. In terms of complement, we rank in terms of size, but our style of work, the kinds of cases we take, and our client profiles are very, very unusual.
Yeah. So the award was given, the recognition was given for developing a KM portal. Could you kind of start by telling us what the background? I mean, what was the problem that you kind of set out to solve? What was the need that you needed to fill in kind of building this and developing this?
Sure. Well, I'll give the problem case from our perspective, and then maybe Kate will tell us what the real problem was. This really started about 2 years ago when my boss, the former executive director of the organization, came to me and said, "I really think we need to get involved with knowledge management. Will you please find out what that is?" And I was really starting from scratch. My background is not law. My background is human services. I spent about 10 years working in homeless services and criminal justice services. And so this was my first law firm job. So this was really new to me as a discipline, as an organizational discipline. And so I went out and started talking to private sector firms who were engaged in knowledge management to learn more about it and to find someone who could help guide us through this process. In terms of the problems we were solving for, as the COO, there were certainly things I saw that I know we could improve through, again, that intersection of people, process, and technology. One was that we needed a way to connect the organization, what I'm calling horizontally. So in each borough, we have offices, and those boroughs function, they work amazingly, they serve so many people, but we weren't really connected horizontally as one organization and able to share information in a way that preserved the information, that made it searchable and findable and retrievable, and that would really preserve it. So that was one obvious operational issue on the subject of knowledge that I knew we needed to correct for. Some other things that were pretty obvious on the surface was we had a huge collection of repositories. People were using all different tools all the time, so there was a lack of smoothness and uniformity in the way that information was being preserved. Searchability was certainly an issue. And we had a lot of shadow tech going on, because if there's one thing that you might know about human services as a sector, is that it is a get-it-done culture. Right? So if you don't have the right tools, you just sort of fashion it with duct tape and get it done, because you've got people's apartments on the line, their families are on the line, and we're here to serve people. It's a double-edged sword, because while that creates a lot of ingenuity, it also means that organizations like ours don't often have the ability to invest deeply in prospective technologies, because we devote all of our resources to services. So those were some of the problems that I came to Sente with, and now maybe Kate will talk about the problems that she saw.
So we started the project with asking a lot of the questions that we ask of any firm that we work with, understanding who are the users, what's their experience, and really digging deep both at a broad level. We did a lot of surveying. We had huge engagement. People really wanted to lean in. They wanted to help solve this. They knew it would help them in the long term. And help them be able to serve more people better and more efficiently. This identification that there were silos of data, but those silos actually each served a purpose. So we really didn't want to start kicking things over or replacing anything. What we wanted to do is improve that findability, leverage the years of KM experience that our team has with the private sector, bring in people to answer questions and help us think about how, at a low cost, could we leapfrog the technology without putting in place massive, heavy investments of technology that the organization didn't need and couldn't afford. So how could we do that with a lightweight, very nimble, flexible solution that we can continue to build on with the LISNI team, already dreaming about what are the next phases of KM at the organization.
One of the most interesting findings from a survey that Sente helped us design and deploy through the organization was that where people were going to share things was different than where people were going to find things. And that's such a simple equation, but it belied a really complex problem that we needed to solve that was both technology and behavioral. And then we went to work on designing a system together, and it has done an amazing job for us.
Yeah, it's interesting because I joked before about the fact that you guys stood out like a sore thumb here, but what you're describing actually sounds very much like a problem, very much like a lot of law firms. 500 lawyers, siloed, disjointed information systems. The fact that you're in the public sector and public service is really not probably the only thing that really distinguishes you here, right?
I suppose that's right. And I have to say, we really got incredibly lucky in terms of the timing of this initiative. The entry point to this technology is now accessible to a large nonprofit organization, whereas it was prohibitively expensive just a few years ago. So the combination of the pricing of the technology dropping, having all of this expertise bound up in the private sector who have been investing in this work for so long, we knew that we had an opportunity to leverage private sector innovations and use it for the public good. And that gets us closer to our mission, and it's also just cool.
So, Kate, I was curious, following what I just said, did you kind of look at it that way, or did you see this as sort of a unique
No, we
unique
absolutely.
situation? Yeah.
We saw it as if we were Paul Hastings, we would be saying, okay, let's go talk about off-the-shelf legal tech, because this is it's not a solved problem, but it wasn't a problem we hadn't heard of before. What was innovative for us was trying to do it in a way that was low cost, again, very flexible, and didn't disrupt the underlying infrastructure. We know there's growth in the infrastructure to happen across the legal sector, and we can see that coming, and we didn't want to kind of lock ourselves in from a technical perspective.
Yeah. What kind of a budget did you have for this? Again, compared to what you might have in the private sector or something.
Slim. Slim. We started with a generous but modest grant from one of our key funders who was interested in expanding just our technical capabilities, and we came to them with this as an initiative. And so they really kicked us off, and through that generosity, we were able to at least say, okay, we can work on this for a year together. Let's see what we can do. And then as the ball got rolling and we got serious about developing very specific solutions for the needs that were identified in the organization, it was a lot easier to put some more funds to it. But we really did this at a very low cost. And as Kate said, this is certainly true in private sector law firms too. In public sector firms, outcomes of the client are absolutely everything. There's a lot on the line. It is people's homes, it is people's families, it is people's immigration statuses. So when you approach an attorney with a new tool and say, hey, you have to work differently now, they're going to unleash hell. Because you're standing in the way of them achieving their mission.
Right.
And so this solution, as Kate said, had to integrate with our existing infrastructure, not force big behavioral changes, and really function as a servant application, servant leadership, right? We are here to support you in your work for our clients. And that is a little bit different in our sector. We need a coalition of the willing to really propagate a new solution like this. Right. And because it was such a flexible solution that can accommodate all these different people's needs, all these different practices needs, all these different administrative areas needs, we were successful.
And they do. We often start training and people are like, oh, I have a catalog and it's going to take me a long time to load it. Mm-hmm. And we'll sit with them for 15 minutes. I think Alexander and I have perfected the 15-minute training. We both wind up sweaty at the end, but we can get through a training in 15. And we make them go hands-on, and they'll finish and say, that was so easy.
Yeah,
and
so easy.
The incorporation of the standardization using large language models, making it really intuitive for them to know how to submit content, making it available that anybody in their organization can submit that, so that you're harvesting and rewarding that good contributory behavior, which is very much a part of the nature and culture of the organization to begin with. So really leaning into that and saying, we don't want to make this hard, We want to make it a little bit social network, a little bit professional document management, but just harness that goodwill, that willingness to want to help each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So describe a little bit about what it is you ended up building. What are some of the key features? What's it look like?
So it's very much a personalized hub. When the user first interacts with it, it will deliver to them. So thinking about Alexander describing the need to approach people horizontally, it will recognize, are you primarily practicing immigration or housing? So it will start kind of with that and bring that information to the front. But it will also know which office are they in, what other kind of aspects of information do they need surfaced on a regular basis. From there, from that personalized aspect, they can drill in. If they need to go to a specific hub, they can go visit that. All of the knowledge that they collect and that they contribute is pinned on a My Knowledge page. So even as they're interacting with the knowledge of others in the organization, they're also curating their own garden of knowledge that they can then refer back to and pin and prioritize and move around so that becomes their go-to file cabinet as they need to use it. Layered across is the semantic search, so as knowledge is stored in the system, we're also able to really quickly retrieve it. Whether it's, I think the demo that Alexander showed said, is my lunch still going to be in the kitchen on Monday that I put in Friday? So the very basic kind of things people need to know when they're going to work, but also, how do I handle a new legal situation that I haven't encountered before for those new lawyers?
Yeah, I love that about the system. I love that it's built to handle a wide variety of media, and that the search functions, both semantic and keyword, can handle really mundane administrative information like that, but also really specific and substantive legal issues. This just accomplishes so many goals at once, and that's why I love this solution, and I think it's so elegant. It does connect the organization across in a new way. It does handle both non-legal issues and legal issues, and it gets people thinking really critically about how to exercise quality control over information and knowledge at an organization that is 60 years old and has accumulated, just millions and millions of pages of information over its lifespan. The quality control issue is huge for us, and that's one of the features that Sente built that I think was just so genius. We distributed quality control as a responsibility that is shared by subject matter experts for each hub. So there's a finance hub. Those subject matter experts are our CFO and our controller and our director of accounting. In legal practice areas, you've got directors and deputies and litigation experts. You might have 9 publishers in every hub so that anyone can submit information. It's incredibly democratic, but the quality control is exercised by publishers who know the subject matter and then curate the hubs for each of those practice areas. So it's
like Reddit moderators.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
They're wonderful moderators, and it's both a teaching and a learning tool, and I love that about it.
Well, and you mentioned Reddit. We have an upvote feature, so as users like things, they can upvote, and then we have behind the scenes a leaderboard for what content is getting upvoted, so that we can also begin. As we look to the future, there's email subscriptions that are also in there, but how can we think about saying, these are the top read, top upvoted content pieces?
Yeah.
In the hubs are all by practice area, or how are they organized?
Well, they slice and dice the organization both up and down and across. So we have hubs for every practice area, but we also have hubs for individual offices. And then we also have hubs for all the administrative and operational areas of the organization. And because you have access to all of the hubs, no matter which practice area or office you're in, you can get into the HR hub to get the information and self-service stuff that you need there, and then go right back to your practice area and share, again, substantive information. So it's very, very flexible that way, and it kind of provides this incredibly detailed map of the information of the organization, top to bottom and side to side.
And treats the practitioners as the entire person, right? All of the things that they need to be successful.
All of the departments they interact with.
Yeah, it's not just, they don't come and just become a lawyer. They also have other aspects to being part of LISNI that we wanted to make sure were represented.
Right.
Both functional and cultural.
It is one thing to build a technology solution. It is another thing altogether to get legal professionals to use that technology. So how did Legal Services NYC overcome that hurdle and drive adoption? We'll find out in a moment, but first, please take this opportunity to learn about the sponsors whose generosity supports LawNext. As an immigration lawyer, you need case management software that is just as flexible and reliable as you are. With LollyLaw, you can leverage client intake forms, questionnaires, and client payment portals translated into over 20 languages. Plus, with Lolly Payments, you can create invoices and set up payment plans for clients in under 30 seconds. See how LollyLaw can streamline your immigration firm by visiting them at lollylaw.com. That's LOLLYLAW.com. Welcome back to LawNext. By the way, we're very appreciative of the sponsors who support this podcast. If you'd like to learn how you can become one of them, reach out to us for a full media kit. Email Ben Ambrogi, ben@lawnextmedia.com. Today's episode features an interview recorded live on site at the Knowledge Management and Innovation for Legal Conference, held recently in New York City, where Legal Services NYC was named as the inaugural winner of the Lex Prize Award for its development of a custom KM portal to support the work of its lawyers and legal professionals. My guests today are two of the people who were instrumental in the portal's design and development: Alexander Horwitz, the Chief Operating Officer at Legal Services NYC, and Kate Boyd, Chief Operating Officer at Sente Advisors, the company that helped Legal Services NYC design and build the KM portal. Plenty more to talk about, so let's get back to that interview. I've never worked in legal services, but I've worked with legal services lawyers a lot because I was very much involved with our state's bar foundation.
They're an amazing group of people.
They're an amazing group of people. But one of the things that you pick up on something you said earlier is that they are often, I won't say resistant to adopting technology, but they don't have the time or the bandwidth, in a sense, because they're so focused on client service, and there's such a line out the door of people waiting to get help that they kind of say, I can't stop what I'm doing to go think about this.
Exactly
So
right.
how has it been trying to get adoption of this and get people to use this?
Well, in general, I mean, we have a change management model that we use at our organization to roll out, new technologies and new processes, and we tend to work small to large, right, and build groups of evangelists that can help convince others to take on a new technology. This is a little bit different, though, because again, we approach this from a real servant leadership model where this is only about enhancing your work. And so what we need is to show people the benefits of, you can stop searching through your Outlook inbox, right? And using that clunky search feature to try to find some email somebody sent about something 6 months ago. Now it's preserved here. You can communicate with your team a change in guidance from the courts or an important decision that came down that might impact future clients. And here's a way for that sharing to happen, for it to be instantaneous, and for it to be preserved, searchable, findable, retrievable. Once we explain that to folks, they are receptive because they see it as a way of achieving their mission and supporting their clients. A lot of it, though, I have to say, again, comes down to the engineering that Sente did to make this an intuitive interface. It is not difficult to use. It is not difficult to look at. And it is co-branded with the organization in a way that feels quite contiguous and smooth with the rest of the types of applications they already work with. And that's been an enormous help in facilitating adoption.
I would just add, as we were thinking through the experience and the design, and even as we do trainings, we think about the different generations that are in the workplace right
Sure.
now, and so many of the early change agents that we needed to get on board as we were planning it were senior leadership that have a lot of knowledge, and they want to make sure that that is preserved and available within the organization and of use to people who are coming in. A lot of our training is with younger associates who are just joining and trying to get up to speed and trying to quickly handle the questions of their clients. So what we wanted to do was design something that didn't put more burden on the senior leadership and the senior lawyers who have the knowledge, but also played to the younger lawyers being able to quickly interact it, get comfortable with it, and push to have that knowledge in one place.
Well, what Kate just hit on was another actually interesting problem that we hoped to solve for, but we didn't really know if it would be possible. Turns out it is, and that is to reduce the headcount pressure at the organization. In legal services, you can never hire enough lawyers. We can't hire fast enough to support all of the housing court work, all of the family court work. And so there's an enormous headcount pressure in all of our departments. There's also, we train a lot of young lawyers. We have a lot of 3Ls that we hire. We have a lot of junior attorneys that we hire to bring them into the fold. They want to contribute right away. They want to help save someone's house. But of course, they're naturally intimidated by the stakes and the lack of experience. So they rely quite heavily on their managers for guidance. That takes the managers time away as well. So we wanted a system that might help ease that could work as a training portal, right, as well, where they could quickly find information, model briefs, model filings. And that's something that we were hoping to solve for, and that this solution really does deliver on. That managers can, this really shortens the uptake for young attorneys.
Yeah. Is it, in building this, how do I want to say this? Did you discover anything about the knowledge that you had at hand that you didn't know? I mean, as an organization, what did you learn about what you had at your fingertips?
These are, the attorneys in legal services are an unbelievably passionate and dedicated group. We have many, many attorneys who have been with the organization, not 10 years, not 20 years, not even 30 years, but 40 years. So I think what I learned was what that really means in terms of the depth of knowledge and the depth of insight that those folks have. And we are approaching a generational turnover in the workplace, just like every other organization. And when one of those people leaves, we lose a library. And we can't afford that doing the work that we do. So this is a way to preserve that.
Yeah.
Preserve and kind of institutionalize it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I would the shadow tech, I don't know, and I still think there's probably things we haven't found. And they are amazing bespoke solutions that some scrappy lawyer has put in place and is really solving a need. Sometimes it's solving it across boroughs and in partnership with other groups that we really don't necessarily think it's the best way to do it, but it's serving a need, and it really is sometimes so remarkable how innovative those individual solutions are. So it does give us a path to say, well, we're going to leave that alone. It's really good to know that that's there. We might need to circle back on that.
Yeah, and then incorporate it in a way that is super sustainable and maintenanceable and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When did this launch? Just this year, or is it?
Yeah. I mean, we worked on it it took about 18 months, right, to go from first conversation to ready for real testing. Real testing. And now I would say we are about a quarter of the way through the organization in terms of the numbers. And so the rollout will continue probably through the second quarter of 25.
Yeah. You mean, and what does that mean, quarter way through the organization? In terms of actually getting them up and
in terms of bringing in users, training them, bringing them into the system, and then seeing them activate.
Yeah.
Have you discovered next steps? I mean, are you realizing the things that you didn't think of in the initial implementation of this that you want to version 2.0 or whatever?
I mean, I think there were things both that we did see that we knew we wanted to be part of a version 2, version 3, and then, as you say, stuff that we learned along the way. Things like making sure that the entire system is super accessible. Right, and that there are accessibility features built in that we rolled out right away with, in the early version of it. But things like document automation technologies, right, and connecting more deeply our system to other pieces of our infrastructure, like our file warehouse and document management, that is forthcoming. I think, and I'm sure Kate has more to say on this too, but one of my real future goals is for LISNI, for our organization, to be able to teach what this is like to execute to smaller legal services organizations around the country. Legal services exist in every state in the union, in Alaska, in Kentucky, in Mississippi, and they are not as big as we are. They are not as well funded as we are. They don't have great partners like Sente to work with. We need to spread, for lack of a better term, the gospel of knowledge management so that they can get the benefits of this for themselves, for their attorneys, and for their clients. And that is sort of the ultimate version right there, is being able to teach this and get the nonprofit sector up to speed, I think.
Yeah. Have you built something that's kind of portable in that sense? I mean, can this be exported and adopted by other legal services organizations?
I mean, the style of the solution is super scalable.
Absolutely.
And that's the brilliance of it from my perspective.
And the underlying, so it's built on a no-code solution called Bubble, which is very low cost and very, very flexible, very easy to find people who can maintain it. We did not want LISNI to feel that they had to maintain a partnership with any particular developer. So we built it to be lightweight. The same concepts and the same structure could be lifted to a Microsoft environment if that's what an organization has, or a Bubble environment or some other no-code solution could be very low cost.
Yeah, I mean, I know, again, in Massachusetts where I am, their legal services organizations may not be 500 lawyers, but there are some good-sized organizations there that are, say, dispersed across multiple offices and different practice areas across multiple offices, and maybe they're doing something like this. I'm not aware that they are, but I used to be the president of our bar association, which disperses the IOLTA money. This is a number of years ago, and when I would try and talk to them about adopting any kind of technology, frankly, it often fell on deaf ears. Again, just because, as I said, the bandwidth issue, the budget issue. But one of the things I found at the time was that legal services organizations then, and I think this has evolved since then, but didn't do a good job of kind of talking among each other with what they're doing and what they're building, and kind of sharing ideas and sharing things they've developed. So
And we need leadership in our sector, and that's, I think, when your organization grows to the size that we are, in similar sizes, or Legal Aid obviously is another enormous legal services organization in New York, then it is incumbent on you to do this kind of investment, to do this kind of exploration and work, and then to share it. Because we are all after the same thing in our little corner of this sector, and that is helping our clients achieve justice. This is a tool that will help.
And there's no shortage of need.
There is never will be. Our jobs are safe, unfortunately.
We're not going to solve the access to justice crisis anytime soon. Anything else that you wanted to say about this that we haven't asked about, or anything else you wanted to point out about it? I appreciate the time to chat about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really grateful for this opportunity to, I think, connect with other firms who have invested really deeply in this technology. And I have to say that everyone has been just so welcoming of a nonprofit actor in this space. And it makes us feel bold and ready. And again, to see how we can borrow from the private sector and then apply it for the public good. That's a really exciting thing for me as an operations person and as somebody who's been in human services their entire career. This is a really rare opportunity, and we want to seize it.
I would just thank Patrick and the Lex Prize Committee who reviewed this application, encouraged us even when we first asked if we could apply. They've encouraged us to continue what we're doing. The private sector, other partners, other firm players have given us access to the resources, insights, and shared their knowledge. I would like to thank all of those people. You know who you are. And also encourage anyone else who's in a KM role in the private sector, think about how you might be able to contribute some of your time to a nonprofit that is doing this type of work, because it's easy to think that it doesn't apply, but it absolutely does. The problems are the same.
Yeah.
And you'll make some great friends in the process.
You will.
And you get to be on podcasts.
That's right.
Thank you
Okay,
so
now,
much.
Jenner, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Good
so
to talk
much.
to you.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations to Legal Services NYC for developing this portal and winning the first ever Lex Prize. And thanks to Alexander Horwitz and Kate Boyd for telling us all about it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to share your own thoughts or comments on today's show, please do so by messaging us on LinkedIn or X, or by emailing me directly, ambrogi@gmail.com. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. LawNext is a production of LawNext Media. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of LawNext.